Hello, and thank you for following along our workshop for entry-level resumes. Let's get started. Our game plan is to learn about a resume and its purpose, content, and formatting, and then to actually apply what you're learning by drafting your resume section by section as we go through them. There's a few main things to keep in mind as you're making your resume. First of all, big picture purpose. Your resume is made to briefly summarize relevant information about your qualifications for a job or other opportunity. The document itself also showcases your ability to create something professional according to a specific format. But something I really want you to think about is the fact that it's there to persuade the readers that your skill and experience will support their goals and match their values. So it's to persuade those employers that your skills and experience match their goals and values. And the most immediate purpose is to get an interview so that you can get face-to-face and continue persuading them that you're the right choice. Let's talk first about the content and formatting. I'm going to give you recommendations for the sections to include in a resume and what the resume should look like overall. A resume is a genre. So when people look at it, they recognize it as a resume. So to a certain extent, you need to follow those expectations so that it's really clear to somebody, look, this is my resume. Now to work on your resume throughout the workshop, you should open a document, either Microsoft Word, Office 365, you could even use a Google Doc. Either way, consider that an Office 365 Word Online document will save automatically, as will a Google Doc. All of those options provide you with templates if you would like to apply a template, or you can work on it from scratch. I will say it's not difficult to format your resume without a template, and it's better for personalizing it. But on the other hand, a template is better for a more dynamic layout. No matter where you create your resume, when you share it with an employer, always send it as a PDF. That way the formatting that you apply looks the way you want it to when they open it on their computers. The first part of a resume is almost always going to be the header. So this goes at the top of the page, and the most important part of that header is your name. So don't be afraid to make it stand out. You can make it bigger, you can put it in bold, in uppercase, you might apply a color. In the header, you're also going to include your contact information, which can be your address, phone number, email. Make sure that your email is a professional one, so it should be just your name, perhaps your first initial and last name. And make sure it's an email that you're going to be checking so that you don't miss it if an employer reaches out to you. At this point in the video, you should pause and set a timer for 5 minutes. So give yourself 5 minutes to draft your header. All right, now that you've drafted your header, we're going to move on and talk about the objective. Just remember, you're not expected to create everything all the way and perfectly during this workshop. We're just giving you an opportunity to get everything started. So next we're going to talk about that objective. The objective is an optional part of the resume, but it is strongly recommended for entry-level resumes because it gives you more of a chance to explain who you are and why you would be a good hire. An objective summarizes the position and how you will contribute your skills to that position. When you submit resumes, you might not have a lot of time to personalize them to each job, but something you should definitely do is personalize this objective so that your employers see that you cared enough about this job to have a resume that is clearly talking about that specific job. Now, as overall guidelines, your objective should be short, 1 to 2 sentences. It's kind of like a thesis statement in an essay, except this is the thesis statement to the resume. You're trying to tell them what you can do for them, not what they can do for you. So you don't want the objective to simply say that you want the job, because that's just what you get out of it. The objective instead should explain what you can contribute to the job. Make sure that you're specific when you say that. Mention the job, what your contribution would be, and what your skills are. In these first two examples, the objective is too broad. To find an entry-level position in banking, it doesn't mention the specific bank, doesn't mention how you're going to contribute or what your skills are. It's really just what you want to get out of it, which is to get a job. The second one gets a little more specific. To be hired as a bank teller at Stardew Bank, but still isn't very persuasive because it doesn't say why you would be good as a bank teller at Stardew Bank. The third one is more specific about all three things. To support customers at Stardew Bank by utilizing my prior bank telling experience and friendly, personable demeanor. Here are questions to help you draft your own objective. Where are you applying and for what position? What will you do for them? What will you contribute? Think about what they would be looking for in this kind of employee. And what skills or previous experience will allow you to make that contribution? Now, you may want to illustrate the skills you have through the experience that you've gained. I recommend that you pick 1 to 3 skills for the whole resume. Dedicate the resume to proving you really have these skills. Provide proof that you have those skills with the experience that you have. Any kind of experience can persuade that you have those skills, but you have to believe that you have those skills in order for you to be able to convince someone else that it's true. If you're lacking confidence, fake it till you make it. Now, we will have an experience section where you'll really delve in to those experiences, but I wanted you to keep this in mind as you were working on your objective, because your objective is going to need to state what are these skills you're claiming you have, and maybe start to mention some of the experience that proves you have those skills. Keep in mind in this example, the person says that they can support customers by utilizing their prior bank telling experience and friendly, personable demeanor. So their friendly, personable demeanor is a skill. Their prior bank telling experience, of course, is an experience. Use whatever you have, whatever you can present persuasively. Here are some examples of skills that you might want to show you have through the experience that you've had in the past. Pick 1 to 3 that you're really going to show you really do have these skills. Okay, it's time to get started. I know this is difficult, but remember this first part is just in a sentence. What is the job? How will you contribute to it? And with what skills or experience? Set a timer for 5 minutes and then come back to the video. Let's move on to the education section. Your education section should be organized from present to past because usually your most recent educational experience is going to be more relevant. However, if your education isn't as important as your experience, for example, you might want to put the whole experience section before the education section. Again, make choices that will help you be as persuasive as possible for that employer. The information you should include should be the name and location of the school, dates attended, a major, minor, or area of concentration, the graduation date or your anticipated graduation date, and you can also include your GPA, and I recommend only including GPA if it's 3.7 or higher. You might also want to include relevant coursework, but make sure it is actually relevant. Maybe it's an advanced level course or something that is specifically relevant to the job you're applying for, something that showcases your specific skills or knowledge or helps you stand out in another way. Here's an example of how you can format your education section if you're a dual enrolled student. Set another timer for 5 minutes and get started on your education section. Then come back to the video. Now you're ready to delve into the experience section. You can decide whether you want to organize your experience chronologically or by how relevant it is. The experience that you can include could be paid work, whether part-time or full-time, could be some type of internship or other unpaid work. It could be volunteer or community service, club or group involvement, and any type of leadership you've been able to take a part of. Don't discount any of your experience because you don't think it sounds good. Try to dress it up as best as you can, like saying childcare instead of babysitting, or turning yard work into lawn and garden maintenance. These things can help dress it up. Anything that you've done that can demonstrate responsibility, leadership, or other skills is going to be helpful to you. Common concerns when you get to the experience section is that students who are creating an entry-level resume are worried that they don't have work experience or that the experience they do have isn't relevant to the job they want to get. That is okay. We're talking about entry-level resumes specifically because It's a very difficult task. You're trying to persuade that you have skills, that you're a worthy hire, when you don't have a lot under your belt to make that argument. Just focus on highlighting whatever you have done. Show how the experience you do have is evidence for skills that can transfer to the job you want. In your experience section, make sure to stick to the most relevant information, main points about the jobs or other experiences you're writing about. Too much text on the page will probably cause them to skim it. However, with the information you do include, try to be detailed. What did you do and what did you accomplish? The results of what you did. Use specific numbers when you can. How much, how long. Show, don't tell whenever possible. So show what you did rather than just say you did it. Another important part of a resume, and this is a good example of the genre expectations that you want to fulfill, is writing out your experience in bullet points in incomplete sentences, which makes it easier for your employers to skim. You want to start those bullet points with action verbs. That's an opportunity for you to think about the skill or competency that you want to communicate in that bullet point. Use the provided worksheet of action verbs to help you decide what skill am I trying to communicate with this information and what action verb would help me communicate that. Set your timer for 15 minutes and work on your experience section, then come back to the video. Towards the end of your resume, you can also include optional sections. Additional sections might include specialized skills you have or training, like using computer programs relevant to the job. Could be honors and awards, certifications, languages, volunteer work, and leadership roles. However, you should only include optional sections if they don't cause you to go over one page, or the details can help employers make an informed decision about you, or the information supports the thesis of your resume. It helps demonstrate the skills and qualifications you're saying you have. Try to be choosy about which information is relevant and which isn't. You guessed it, set your timer to 5 minutes and work on your optional sections. Finally, many resumes will include references. References are people who know about you in an academic or professional sense and can vouch for you. You'll usually include 2 to 3 of those on your resume. Make sure you ask those people for permission before you do so. References might be an employer, a supervisor, a teacher, a counselor. Now, when you include references, the employer might say that they want it in a specific format. Maybe they want it on the resume, or they have a box to fill in that information on an online form, or maybe they don't want it right now and they want it later upon request. If the employer doesn't specify how they want their references, I would recommend you include them if you have the space. If you don't have the space, you can put this sentence at the bottom of the resume. References are available upon request. Now, when you include information about the references, make sure you give as much information about those people as you have, because you want to make it easy for employers to contact those references. So bring up their name, their title, place of employment, the address of the company or organization, their phone number, and their email. Set your timer to 5 minutes and draft your references section. Okay, we're almost finished with our entry-level resume workshop. Before we finish out, let's think about some do's and don'ts. Overall, on a resume, don't use pronouns like I, me, and my. Use incomplete sentences instead, of course, that start with those action verbs. Don't use abbreviations or acronyms that your reader might not recognize. You don't want to make it difficult for employers to understand what you're talking about. In addition, don't include reasons for leaving a past job or any wage information. Those are things that the employer might ask you about in an interview, but don't need to be brought up on a resume. There are also some important do's. Be prepared to discuss what you included in the resume, because during the interview, employers might use the resume to ask you questions. Do include a cover letter, unless the employer specifies that they don't want one. Cover letters are a great way to get really specific and show your voice as a real person, and a lot of people will choose not to include one, so it helps you stand out. And please do seek feedback, revise, and proofread. This is such an important document. It's something that you should be looking at over and over and continuing to tweak. Okay, so now you have a resume draft. Where do you go from here? To assess how your resume is coming along, I recommend you ask yourself these 5 questions. You can also visit the Writing Center for a tutor to help you answer them. Question 1. Am I being detailed enough to truly demonstrate my skills, to show or to prove instead of just to tell? Am I using action verbs? Is my resume overall making a somewhat specific argument about my skills or qualifications? Will this resume be persuasive to this specific employer? And finally, are my formatting choices consistent throughout the document? Thank you for following along this workshop. I hope it was helpful to get some time to work on each section of your resume. Hope to see you in the Writing Center.